Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Half of the Elite Eight field has been set. Also, opening day did not disappoint. And how high can Michael Penix Jr. get drafted? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
After a chalky first few rounds in the men's NCAA tournament, it was a bad night to be the higher seed. 1 and 3 on Thursday night were the higher seeds. We can talk about UConn in a second, including the stunner of the night. Alabama takes down North Carolina behind Grant Nelson, who becomes the first player in the Sweet 16 or later since Kevin Love back in 2008 to have 20, 10, and 4 or more blocks in an 89-87 win over the number 1 seed UNC. Joining me now from Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Tar Heels, Isaac Shane. And Isaac, we gotta wear both hats for this one.
That's right. That's right.
What happened to the Tar Heels on Thursday night?
Well, what's funny, Peter, is North Carolina has had several slow starts recently, like the Michigan State game where they got down by 12. They didn't do that in the first half of this basketball game.
They had an 8-point lead at halftime.
That's right. And they had a 10-point lead early in the first half. The problem was the second half start. So they just delayed it 20 minutes. North Carolina, Peter, scored a grand total of 7 points in the first 10 minutes of the second half. The 3-point shooting where they went bonkers in the first half, 10 of 16, was ultimately fool's gold. And that was probably my big concern for North Carolina at halftime, was the most threes the Tar Heels had made all season was 12. They had 10 at halftime. And ultimately, RJ Davis, the ACC Player of the Year, unfortunately picked the worst time to have the worst shooting game of the season, went 4 of 20 from the field, 0 of 9 from 3. The only game this season he did not make a three-pointer.
Yeah, and the other big one on Thursday night was Clemson getting the win over Arizona. And you kind of predicted this. The last time we talked, you singled out Clemson as, hey, this team is extremely dangerous. They are battle tested. Right. And not only did they give Arizona everything they could handle, they got the win 77-72. They had to play tough down the stretch and get some big buckets as well. What did you see for the key in this Clemson win?
Well, that's what it was, Peter. You just said this Clemson win. This was not an Arizona choke job.
Yeah.
This is Clemson going out and just winning a basketball game. As you said, Arizona pushed them in the second half, and Clemson just kept making play after play after play. And what has really impressed me is you've had it most of the season from PJ Hawley. You've had it most of the season from Joe Girard and Ian the Chef Shefflin with all the great chefs. I mean, I love that. That's probably my favorite thing this March Madness. But Chase Hunter has stepped up in an unbelievable way for Brad Brownell's team. He's led them in scoring all 3 games of the NCAA tournament so far, including 18 on Thursday night. And what I thought was super cool is his younger brother, Dylan Hunter, who's also on the team. They had like back-to-back scoring opportunities to kind of salt this thing away right at the end. And so what a cool moment to share with your sibling. Clemson is ultimately moving on. If you thought one of the 2 ACC teams from Thursday, it's probably flipped. But Peter, that North Carolina and Caleb Love reunion we all talked about doesn't even come close to materializing because neither team makes it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the 18 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists for Hunter in that one. The elephant in the room. And this elephant has battle armor. They've got a tank and a rocket launcher because UConn, they look right now like they cannot be stopped. Is this just over already?
Well, Peter, I've mentioned this to you a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember when, but no reigning national champion since Florida repeated in 2007 has made it past the Sweet 16. That's over.
Here we are.
UConn just blew that out the door. And you knew it. You looked at this thing at halftime. They hadn't played well in the first half and were up in this national championship rematch by 9 points. And it was like, why bother watching the second half? Because they did exactly what they did, literally doubled up San Diego State 42-21, 82-52. Peter, if somebody is going to stop UConn, I'm going to need to know who it's going to be. I just do not see it happening. Danny Hurley's club is clicking on every single cylinder they could find right now.
Yeah, they're making up cylinders to click, and they're clicking because all they do is win and win in huge ways. The last half dozen tournament games that they played, they're winning by double digits. Some of these games by 20 and 30 points. They look unbelievable right now. We will be with you with the latest on Locked On College Basketball, Locked On Tar Heels, and all the rest. Thanks, Isaac.
Thank you.
Keep up to date with the biggest stories in college basketball by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On College Basketball on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, baseball is back and open the season with the appropriate fireworks. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help save money on tickets. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for big-time savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. For a limited time, all users can get $20 off Major League Baseball purchases of $150 or more in the Gametime app with code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. That's code FIRSTPITCH for $20 off from March 15th through April 14th only. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube on the free Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Baltimore Orioles dominated the LA Angels in the first game of opening day. Unsurprisingly, Mike Trout still hit a home run because that's what he does.
You know, you can't be about it if your starter goes out there and gives up 5 runs in 1 inning and 2/3 innings pitched. What's going on, everybody? John Frisch, one half of Locked On Angels. Listen, opening day, complete disaster on the part of the Angels. Patrick Sandoval could not locate any of his pitches, couldn't get any swings and misses. He only had 6 through his whole inning and 2/3. Defense didn't help him out either, as usual. Why does that always happen with Patrick Sandoval? That's something we're going to talk about on tomorrow's show. And we're going to talk about this game. We're going to recap it. We're going to talk about what went horribly wrong in this one against Corbin Burnes, who dominated the Angels like the Cy Young that he is. We move on, I guess, and we'll be talking about this one on Locked On Angels. We hope you'll join us, and we'll see you there.
The New York Yankees start the year 1-0 after a great defensive play by Juan Soto.
Nestor, I mean, retiring 12 of the last 13 guys he faced. He had 33 pitches in that first inning, and then he went the rest of the game only throwing about 30-something more than that. So, just unbelievable performance by him. That could have been really, really disastrous. He could have been taken out in the first inning. Nick Birdie was already warming up. It could have been a completely different game, and thank God Nestor settled down.
And the Chicago Cubs night went from bad to worse as they lost not only the game, but ace Justin Steele as well.
Cubs lose 4-3 on opening day to the Rangers in 10 innings and lose Justin Steele to a hamstring injury. Still need updates on that throughout the weekend. Not going to know anything probably until Friday or Saturday, but it was a crazy game at Arlington. Cubs carried leads of 1-0, 2-1, and 3-2. But Sam, they do lose this one and by a string in more ways than one.
I mean, for me, the Steele thing is the headline here. This is one of 162. If Steele could come out of this just missing maybe a start or two, it's fine.
They had 3 runs in the second, and they led this game 5-1 early. And not that it put it away at that point, but you were kind of feeling like, okay, the O's are just blitzing Los Angeles pitching. I mean, Patrick Sandoval, the opening day starter for the Angels, did not even last 2 innings. He leaves with 2 outs in the second inning. Goes an inning and 2/3, 5 runs, 3 earned on 6 hits, 2 Ks, 2 walks. The Orioles forced him to throw 60 pitches to record just 5 outs in this game. And the crazy part about it was, and Brandon Hyde said it after the game in his post-game press conference, he was just so impressed with the quality of the at-bats by the Orioles in the first couple of innings to open up the season. In the first time around against a starter, the O's were well known for how well they did the second time through the order against starters last season. Well, they did it the first time this year. And what was so impressive is it's not like the Orioles squared up Sandoval at all. Sandoval threw 60 pitches. The Orioles offense only had 1 hard hit ball against Patrick Sandoval in this game. What they did was they worked the pitch count. They drew the 2 walks and got a little bit of luck involved, but they were patient. They swung at strikes. They took the balls. It was an impressive start to this game.
I'm burying the lead. What is the lead? Is the lead Joe Espada putting in Singleton for Myers? Is the lead Jake Myers going 1 for 2 and hitting a home run? Is the lead Framber Valdez just leaving way too many men on base and walking? What's the lead? Is the lead going down 0-1 and then we see the Rangers did a walk-off win and win 4-3 in the bottom of the 10th inning where they had a banner fell. Their banner looked like it came from Fanatics and not an actual banner company, but I digress. Is the lead 10 walks?
Twins get some runs late, win 4-1. But again, not all puppies and rainbows and all that good stuff. There were some tough moments in the game, and they came pretty early.
Well, Royce Lewis got off to another great start by hitting a home run. I couldn't believe it wasn't a grand slam, though. I'm sure he'll work on that. But Rocco marveled after the game about, boy, he did it again. It's like every day. And I know we just started the season, but he's thinking back to the playoffs and down the stretch last year. But of course, if you're not aware, I think it was after his second at bat, Lewis got hurt running the bases. He has a quad injury. That's what the Royals are called. The Twins are calling it. The Royals probably would call it that too.
Yeah, probably.
We don't have a strain grade yet, and that will determine the length of how long he's out. Rocco's like, I don't want to speculate about that, but usually these quads, I think we're talking minimum a week if it's like not that bad of a strain. But he had to come out; he couldn't run the bases, so I don't know. I bet we're looking at grade 2 anyway, which is probably an IL stint.
The same runners and scoring position issues from last season are just a fluke. I mean, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt with it being game 1 and, everybody's still kind of getting ramped up and getting ready to go and figuring stuff out. I mean, you saw that with pitching. You saw that with hitting on both sides. You saw that with fielding on both sides. But the Pirates were 2 for 17 with runners in scoring position in this game. 2 for 17 and left 13 players on base. You take advantage in those spots. This game doesn't even get to the point that it did with the 12 innings that we saw today in Miami. But, man, you got to fix that. That is something that cannot linger. I mean, you had the 6th inning where they had bases loaded with 1 out. You look at 2 strikes looking. Not something that you really want to keep on doing. You, again, get another one where another time you have bases loaded and 1 out. You walk away with 1 run, at least in that scenario. O'Neal Cruz, by the way, man, struggles against lefties. We know that. O'Neal Cruz struggles against lefties. He had a pretty solid game, though. Obviously had that tying home run against Sixto Sanchez that led us to going to extra innings.
Opening day, your Rangers are 1-0 atop the AL West all by themselves as of this recording. We'll see if the A's can eke out a win and maybe join the Rangers up there, or maybe the Mariners too. But for right now, for the next however many hours, your Rangers are atop the AL West after an absolutely thrilling, enjoyable, wild, mind-numbing, frustrating, and exhilarating opening day as your reigning World Series champs.
So the St. Louis Cardinals began their 2024 season today in LA in front of a sellout crowd of 52,667 people and got pummeled by the Dodgers by the score of 7-1. It was a day dominated by good pitching and bad pitching. On the one side of the spectrum, you had Tyler Glasnow for the Dodgers. And on the other side, you had Miles Mikolas for the Cardinals. And clearly by the score, final was 7-1, you should know which side each one of them fell on when it comes to the good-bad spectrum. Now, I don't want to be overly harsh on Miles because it wasn't all bad for him today, but let's go ahead and start in our own house and talk about Mr. Mikolas. I know we all want to move on from the 2023 season and how disastrous it was and everything that happened in it. The way to do that is not look like you did last year. You want us to forget about 2023 and move on, then be better than you were in 2023. And my first impression today was that Miles Mikolas looked a whole lot like the guy from last year.
Stay in the know on who's the best team in baseball by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On MLB on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Washington Huskies QB Michael Penix Jr. wowed at his pro day. Whether you're at the ballpark or on the couch, get in the action on the diamond with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Keeping an eye on the pitching matchup, looking for the home dog. FanDuel has ways to play all season long. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on run lines, money lines, over-unders, and more. You can even combine prop bets on things like strikeouts and home runs to increase your payout. The Atlanta Braves and Philadelphia Phillies set to open their series with the initial game yesterday postponed. Cy Young contender Spencer Strider and the recently extended Zach Wheeler face off. The Braves -130 road favorites in this one. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on baseball all season long. Washington Huskies QB and NFL draft prospect Michael Penix Jr. had a great workout at his pro day, including posting a 4.5 40 and a 36.5-inch vertical jump.
Michael Penix Jr. established himself as a top 15 pick in the 2024 NFL draft. And hey, he's got to give a little shout out to us in the process. As during his 40-yard dash, he timed at a 4.46 unofficial, which is the time that you and I had sitting there, confirmed by a couple other people. I had actually multiple other people walk up to me and say, hey, yeah, what did you have him at? We had him at a 4.46. So not alone in that process either. Shout out to the NFL for using our time and everything like that as well. But between that, his 36.5-inch vertical jump, and you can't get too wrapped up into it, but with his impressive just day throwing the ball as well, where it looked like he tweaked a couple of things mechanically and kind of listened to the NFL, had a little bit more of a compact release. He's going to be a top 15 pick at this point. He has to be.
Yeah, I mean, this process has played out exactly how we both thought it would for Michael Penix, where once the evaluators get to see him, checks the box at Indy, does his pro day, gets his body right, even just a little bit. Again, to your point, his body was already right. It's just tweaking it just a little bit, those couple little bit of changes. And that, I mean, again, Penix has all the tools for everybody saying, oh, I don't know, he's not that good of a passer. Or, okay, again, nobody's going to credit him for saying he's like Johnny Manziel with his legs. But again, he showed today, hey, look, and he's had the tweet on Wednesday where, look, just because I don't run doesn't mean I can't.
This is a great chance to remind ourselves, and maybe NFL teams will do this and maybe they won't, but just because a player has great physical tools, just because they test really well, doesn't mean that stuff shows up in the game. Doesn't mean it shows up on tape. Michael Penix Jr. is a loose thrower of the football. He can absolutely sling it, but almost everything he does is from the pocket. Almost every great play, almost every good play is 1, 2, 3, ball out, or 1, 2, 3, hold, reset, ball out. It's not doing what Jaden Daniels does, or Caleb Williams, or even Drake May, who is a terrific runner and athlete in his own right. Now, the fact that he can do it, that's great. And maybe there's more to his game than we realize. We saw this from CJ Stroud last year. Everything was so good at Ohio State, the offensive line, the receivers. He didn't have to create. He didn't have to make something out of nothing. And we saw in that game against Georgia at the end of his Ohio State career, hey, there's something here. And then as a rookie, he takes the league by storm, doing more than just creating in structure. We don't have that evidence with Michael Penix Jr., certainly not at his best. And so while the numbers are great and point to a player who could, if he needed to, take off and make a play, be explosive with his legs, it's just not who he is at his best. And so it raises the question, how much does it really matter? It's not going to make him a top 15 pick. It's not. But then again, it only takes one team. And finally, the Dodgers' massive 7-1 victory over the Cardinals featured home runs by Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman. Shohei Ohtani joked after that he was the only one of the trio that couldn't hit a home run. Maybe he lost himself on that last leg of a parlay. I don't know. Are you watching Fox Sports on ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you the canvas analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, find out who won their opening series in Major League Baseball, plus who is still alive in the NCAA tournament. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.